Chapter 407. Transliterary. I actually didn't take his life? Ling Han was taken aback, then gave a shake of his head and relaxed his fingers. The twig in his grasp instantly ground down into fine dust. It had only ever been an ordinary twig, and how could it possibly withstand his sword intent? Once his origin power scattered, it naturally crumbled away. Luoda stared at Ling Han as if struck dumb. Was this youngster some kind of freak? He was merely at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, yet his combat strength surpassed even Shen Zhongcheng's, and he had nearly ended Shen Zhongcheng with a twig wielded like a sword. Ling Han stroked his chin and said, "What should I do? I said I'd use a twig, but I couldn't even kill the man. Now that's awkward." Luoda's teeth clacked together, yet his face remained stubborn as he said, "Kill me if you want. Don't humiliate me." Ling Han let out a roguish laugh and said, "Worthy of someone on the prodigy roll. At least you've got a bit of backbone. Fine then. Since you're so eager to die, I'll grant your wish." Luoda's face twitched uncontrollably. Could it be Ling Han had meant to spare him, yet his own unbending attitude was about to cost him his life? The price of such stubbornness was far too steep. Ling Han's expression abruptly hardened. He lifted his head to the heavens and said, "Since your lordship has already arrived, there's no need to keep hiding." Hey, I was merely passing by. Thought I'd stop and watch the excitement." A middle-aged man in his 30s sprang down from the crown of a tree. His frame was long and lean, yet even at this age, he still carried an alluring bearing. The 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han assessed him in silence. If he fought barehanded, his combat strength would be around spiritual pedestal tier 2 stars. If he employed the mysterious 3000, he could raise it to 3 stars, and with the 2 spirit tools added, he could reach 7 stars. Then with the formation on top of that, his upper limit could contend with spiritual pedestal tier 9 stars. This was utterly astonishing, for he was currently only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. To have battle prowess that leapt across an entire great realm, this truly was defying heaven. Of course, if one accounted for the Black Tower's power boost, forget it. This wasn't normal combat strength and could only be used once per major tier. Yet even if he was monstrous, his opponent could be monstrous as well. A 9th layer spiritual pedestal tier expert didn't necessarily possess only 9-star battle prowess. It could be 10 stars, perhaps 15 stars, or even 20 stars, who could say? "What is your lordship called?" Ling Han asked with a smile. "My surname is Ding, and my name is Yuan Xin," the middle-aged man replied with a smile. As his gaze swept over Ling Han, a baleful air seeped out. "Ding Yuanxin?" Ding Gaoyang's elder brother, a figure from the previous term's prodigy role, and not low-ranked at all. At once, Ling Han was certain the opponent's battle prowess was absolutely not merely 9 stars. Without the ability to fight beyond one's tier, how could one ever climb onto the prodigy role? Impossible. One had to have combat strength surpassing 5 stars at the very least. Ling Han let out an "oh" and said, "I think I've heard of someone called Ding Gaoyang. Do you know him?" "That's my younger brother," Ding Yuanxin said. "Then I'm truly sorry. I butchered him." Ling Han shrugged. "I know. That's why I've come to kill you." Ding Yuanxin spoke evenly, yet his tone was steeped in bone-deep chill. Ling Han rubbed his chin and said, "Are you sure you can kill me? You are indeed extraordinary. Only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, yet your combat strength has already broken through spiritual ocean tier's limit, reaching spiritual pedestal tier 2 stars, even 3 stars. But that's all it is. I stand at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and my battle prowess can reach 15 stars. How could you possibly resist?" Ding Yuanxin said indifferently, looking incomparably calm. "Then what are you waiting for? Let me test this 15-star spiritual pedestal tier battle prowess." Ling Han laughed loudly. "As you wish." Ding Yuanxin snorted. His figure flickered, and he was already before Ling Han, a palm swatted toward Ling Han's forehead, and before the strike even landed, origin power had already surged forth in overwhelming waves, brimming with terrifying destructive force. Ling Han's figure shot backward. Wang, the thunder battle armor had already been activated, forming a barrier of lightning. The demon birth sword also appeared in his hand, and as he lit up 2 vein-like lines, he slashed 7 arcs of sword chi lashed out. Even so, he was still blasted away. His palm, his neck, and other areas split open, revealing cracked skin and thin trails of blood. 15-star spiritual pedestal tier battle prowess was simply too terrifying, and he hadn't activated the small heavenly origin spirit snake formation, so he was even less able to contend. Yet Ding Yuanxin wore a look of astonishment. Though he had not used his full strength, with his level a casual strike should be at least 10-star battle prowess. And yet it had only shocked Ling Han and cracked his skin. This was utterly absurd. Ling Han paid it no mind inwardly. If not for the fact that he was still at the Rockcliffe body and had yet to advance into the Iron Sheet body, the shock of such power wouldn't even have been enough to split his skin. Only Luo Da was frightened until cold sweat soaked him through. Ling Han was actually strong to such a degree, and he had actually wanted to kill Ling Han. He truly had far too inflated an opinion of his own ability. The real question was, how could Ling Han be this strong? What spirit tool is that? Ding Yuanxin stared fixedly at the demon birth sword in Ling Han's hand. Just now, if not for being intimidated by the sword, causing his combat strength to drop sharply, Ling Han definitely would not have merely been sent flying. It wasn't only the sword. Even the battle armor's defense was astonishing. The two together granted Ling Han a combat strength that could match 10-star spiritual pedestal tier battle prowess. Take a guess, Ling Han said with a smile. Say nothing if you like. Once I seize it from you, it will be mine. Ding Yuanxin said, brimming with confidence. His combat strength was as high as 15 stars, and Ling Han already struggled to receive even a casual strike. How could Ling Han possibly withstand him when he went all out? Ling Han clapped his hands and said with a grin, Your imagination is quite rich. Whether it is imagination or reality, you'll find out very soon. A trace of greed surfaced in Ding Yuanxin's eyes. The 2 spirit tools made his eyes burn red with desire. Whether it was to avenge his brother or to snatch those 2 spirit tools, he had to annihilate Ling Han. Hong, he struck, one palm sending wind and clouds into upheaval. The 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier was the utmost limit mortals could reach, so its might was naturally dreadful. As his palm thrust out, vein-like lines lit up one after another, and with a hong, boundless flames burst outward, turning the surroundings into a sea of fire. Ah! Luo Da screamed miserably and fled in frantic haste. He was only at the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. How could he possibly withstand the might of those flames? Upon the thunder battle armor, vein-like lines interlaced tightly and released unending lightning radiance, winding about Ling Han to block the flame's might. However, this was still exceedingly difficult to bear. His realm remained too low, and the lightning power he could draw out wasn't strong enough, unable to match the flame's ferocity. Ling Han struck with his sword. 7 streaks of sword chi whirled as he circled Ding Yuanxin. Not enough, Ding Yuanxin sneered. The advantage of his cultivation was too vast. No matter what methods Ling Han used, that gap could not be erased. Ling Han did not answer, and merely continued to fight. His left hand flicked, casting out the purple golden patterned rods to arrange the small heavenly origin spirit snake formation. In an instant, a spirit snake manifested and dove into his body, raising his combat strength even further. Huh, formations? Ding Yuanxin showed surprise. Never would I have thought you're also a formation master. However, even if you set up a formation, you are still no match for me at all. Pang, pang, pang. The two fought savagely, yet without question it was one-sided. Ding Yuanxin held the complete advantage. In only a few moves, peril already hemmed Ling Han in from all sides. This was also because he wore the thunder battle armor. Otherwise, he would have already died several times over. Even so, he was riddled with wounds, and in some places the injury even bit down to the bone, greatly affecting his battle prowess. Chapter 408, The Eighth Flash of Sword. Translator, Redditor, Kurisu. After battling until his sinews were nearly wrung dry, Ling Han turned and fled. Ding Yuanxin was plainly pursuing with murderous heat. The two of them acted out a grim chase of flight and kill. Why didn't Ling Han take refuge within the Black Tower? It was because he did not wish to lean on the Black Tower too much. The Black Tower was indeed the most peerless treasure for preserving his life. Yet if Ling Han always regarded it as an all-capable trump card, then should he one day encounter an expert, even the Black Tower could not hold back. What then? This was not exaggeration in the least. After all, the Black Tower was heavily damaged, and there were many elites beneath heaven. Besides, once he formed the habit of shrinking into the Black Tower whenever danger arrived, Ling Han would gradually lose that unyielding spirit and fearless courage. If one wished to climb to the pinnacle of martial arts, courage was a trait that absolutely could not be discarded. Thus, Ling Han would rather lick the blood seeping from his wounds and refuse to hide within the Black Tower. He was using Ding Yuan Shin to temper himself, for he felt that the door to the 8th flash of Sword Chi would soon swing open before him. He was the kind who became tougher, whose fighting spirit grew fiercer, the heavier the pressure. So Ding Yuan Shin was the perfect whetstone, able to grind his sharp blade to an even keener edge. Again and again, Ling Han nearly tumbled into the abyss of eternal perdition. Yet once he circulated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, no matter how grave the injury, it would rapidly mend, allowing him to keep weaving and circling without collapse. For 7 days straight, Ling Han fought as he retreated. The most perilous moment was when an attack struck squarely upon his chest at the gap in the Thunder Battle armor, making his heart almost burst on the spot. Fortunately, with a single drop of indestructible true fluid, he recovered at once. Yet it still made cold sweat pour from him in lingering fear. But after brushing so close to the boundary of death this time, Ling Han gained sufficient enlightenment, and when he slashed his sword, 8 flashes of sword chi burst forth. What? Ding Yuan Shin's eyes nearly fell out. He had clearly almost pierced through Ling Han's chest, and under the shock of origin power, Ling Han's internal organs should have exploded. Yet Ling Han was not only entirely unscathed, he had even advanced further, condensing the 8 flash of sword chi. What a genuine freak. Ling Han threw back his head and laughed, then said, "Thanks." "Thank your sister? Ah!" He had never intended to help Ling Han achieve enlightenment. Ding Yuan Shin's expression turned austere as he said, "So what if you have 8 flashes of sword chi? This absolutely cannot make up for the tear gap between you and me." "You're right, so I'm done playing with you." Ling Han sprang up and slipped into the dense forest. In the blink of an eye, he entered the Black Tower. He could not possibly defeat Ding Yuan Shin in the short term, and since he had formed the 8 flash of sword chi, the purpose was achieved. Naturally, there was no need to keep entangling with the other. He still needed to cultivate. Ding Yuan Shin pursued to that spot. Yet Ling Han's traces had already vanished without a trace, making him bellow again and again in furious rage. After chasing for 7 days and 7 nights, he still had not killed a mere 7th layer. Spiritual ocean tier martial artist, and instead he had allowed Ling Han to form the 8 flash of sword chi. It was a naked slap across his face. "I will definitely find you," Ding Yuan Shin said in a chilling voice. "Your treasures are all mine. Mine." Ling Han cultivated for a while within the Black Tower. These past days, he had either been fighting or fleeing, with no time to cultivate, yet combat was certainly the finest method of improvement. He discovered his body was in an exceptionally special state. Whether spirit chi or origin power, both merged with astonishing smoothness. In this state, the effectiveness of his cultivation could rise by tenfold. This was utterly startling. He had not cultivated for 7 days, yet he used only 1 day to make up for it. Moreover, the results were 3 to 4 times better. No wonder Sword Emperor, Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, and the others had been so belligerent in his previous lifetime. After reaching the Flower Blossom tier, spirit medicines that could increase cultivation became extremely scarce, and origin crystals were the same. What deity transformation tier or heaven tier expert would be willing to refine large quantities of origin crystals for others to consume? At most, they refined 1 or 2 pieces for their juniors, mainly to help them comprehend martial intent. Thus, nurturing oneself through battle was the best choice. After all, in Ling Han's lifetime, there had only been one exceptional Alchemy Emperor, and no one could imitate his path. Ling Han nodded. Seems he would have to seek out strong opponents to fight in the future. Of course, they could not be too strong. or else he would die the moment he grappled with them. And then, what would there be left to talk about? Ling Han had long since been unable to see through Hunyu's cultivation. Only after crossing hands with her did he learn that the little girl had advanced to the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, just a tiny bit below him, yet her momentum surpassed his. It was like someone waving a whip behind Ling Han's back, supervising and urging him not to relax for even an instant, or else Hunyu would overtake him. Being overtaken by a 5 to 6-year-old little girl would be truly humiliating. Ling Han and Hunyu left the tower, and after walking for a time, they ran into the campsite of a group. 10 tents stood ahead, and it happened to be mealtime. 13 people sat around the campfire and ate. Everyone look, this youngster actually brought a little girl into the dark demon forest. Seeing the two of them, several people immediately began to jeer and make a ruckus. Indeed, Hunyu was far too small. To be able to walk all the way here, this youngster must have some skill. Someone saw even deeper. Isn't he only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Hiss, the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. A 7th layer spiritual ocean tier not yet 20 was somewhat surprising. Youngster, you came for the heavenly lucky stone too, right? Heh, several flower blossom tier elites have already appeared. Even spiritual pedestal tier ones have no right to speak, let alone a tiny spiritual ocean tier. Running around recklessly like you do will only bring the calamity of death upon yourself, said an old man at the 7th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han answered with an O, then said with a smile, Senior, why speak like that? Could it be that the dark demon forest now forbids others from entering? It certainly is so, the old man nodded. The heavenly luckstone's value is exceedingly high. Although it is of no use to flower blossom tier and spiritual infant tier elites, for martial artists below them, it is extraordinarily precious, for it can create a genius. Currently, spiritual infant tier elites have not appeared, but many flower blossom tier ones have already arrived. A small character like you wandering about at random might be swatted to death by someone. Youngster, join us of Heavenly Silkworm Court for just these few days of work. 2 pieces of origin crystals each day. How about it? Ling Han put on a look of shock and said, Senior, I'm only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. What use could I be? If I run into flower blossom tier elites, I'm absolutely no match. The heavenly luckstone's location has already been determined, but everyone is wary of the beast that guards it. No one dares strike rashly for fear of giving others an advantage. However, this deadlock won't last long, because everyone will definitely first form an alliance to kill that beast. At that time, the alliance will naturally shatter, and the stronger the group, the greater the chance they have of seizing the heavenly luck stone. Even spiritual ocean tier warriors are forces that cannot be neglected, the old man explained. Ling Han laughed inwardly. Forces that cannot be neglected. That sounded pleasant, but in truth it was merely using them as cannon fodder. Seeing the killing intent buried deep within the old man's eyes, Ling Han understood that, if he shook his head and refused, the old man would certainly attempt to kill him. Though he feared nothing, why not toy with them for now? Once he found the heavenly luckstone's location, he would simply fish in troubled waters. All right, he agreed readily. The old man also revealed a smile, instantly smothering his killing intent.